case, luckily, no one was hit. The car has come to a stop here after turning off State Street. Here's gonna, it looks like he's heading toward the Stevenson, but he has stopped at the light here. Clark and Cermak, is that where it is, Nancy? Okay, Clark and Cermak. Good grief, here are people crossing the street, I hope. What is happening here? Oh, the car is stalled apparently, and these folks are thinking they're helping by pushing the vehicle out of the way. Although it doesn't look like they're pushing, does it? It looks like the car's still moving. Okay, now the driver's getting out. All right, Clark and Cermak is the intersection where we are. And you can see this vehicle that was involved in this scary incident as it plowed through the demonstrators who were at State and Monroe, has come to a stop. And now it looks like these folks are pushing the vehicle. So oh, now it's taking off, okay? And again, it's unclear at this point if the police even know where this vehicle is. So I'm not sure if CPD is following along, but the car has just passed through Clark and Cermak, heading. All right, he's just missed, I think, the turn that would have taken him to the Stevenson. So, or she, I should say, that now that we know who's gotten out of the car. Okay, now the left turn, or nope, straight through. And look at, oh, how close came to that. Oh, this is frightening. And here's another example of how hard it is to follow these vehicles. Chris, I'm talking to our executive producer here. I probably, just for the sake of the viewers watching, do we have a delay on this? I'm asking out loud because I don't know. Okay, there's no delay. So what we're watching here, folks, is live. And as a result, we should all be warned that whatever happens here, we can't delay or stop before whatever might unfold happens. So we'll continue to track this vehicle. And here we go now. We're going to probably have a difficult time picking this vehicle back up on the other side as Skywatch starts to flip over. Okay, as we continue to follow this vehicle, let's check back in with Sabrina, who's on the ground, where this car just moments ago raced through a crowd of demonstrators. Sabrina, do you have any updates on whether anybody's been hurt?
Joe, right now it seems like the crowd has moved on without a hitch. They're continuing underneath the L train tracks, still protesting what they've been doing for the last few hours here. Unclear, like I mentioned, if anybody's been physically hurt. It does not seem so. I have not seen any ambulances on the ground here. Just protesters continuing to march. At the time the car drove by, of course, we were talking to you, and we were looking ahead, talking about the arrests that have been made so far this afternoon. Only a handful, possibly 2 arrests we're hearing on the ground now. When that car drove through and we heard a woman who was standing just beside us wail with fear, had no idea exactly what was happening. It's unclear, of course, if there's any connection to this protest or why this car was driving through what police had already blocked off at all. But people here pulling off to the side, some of the families that were here for the protest earlier, consoling their children that were on the ground here. And those who are protesting, like I mentioned, continuing to do so while this search presumably begins for this car that drove through this protest. In the video,
Sabrina, thank you. Happened just about 10 minutes ago as that car raced through the demonstrators, and you could see there were some who were at least trying to stop that vehicle. There were some who were in front of it, but luckily we were able to get out of the way. And then at the tail end of that section of demonstrators, you could see at least one officer who tried to reach out and do something to stop this driver. But the driver continued for a long way, and we'll continue now to see the scene. As we can tell you now that we're getting our bearings here a little bit more. Sabrina's on Wabash because you can see Miller's Pub over there on the right and the L tracks up above Sabrina, and the crowd continues to move on. So the good news, Sabrina, the takeaway from this is that it appears no one was hurt. That section we saw was toward the end of where that vehicle entered the demonstrators, and no one before that was hit, correct?
It appears so, Joe, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we did not see any ambulances respond to the corner where we were previously standing. Just a bunch of families and others who were shocked to see what had happened, kind of stepping to the side and consoling themselves for at least a brief moment, trying to really understand exactly what happened here. I cannot say with 100% certainty that nobody was injured, especially as people started to run from this car driving through the street here, but it does not seem like there were any major injuries because we had not seen first responders come bring anybody into an ambulance and bring them presumably to a hospital. But as this hunt for this vehicle continues, this protest is also continuing. This is hours and hours long of people gathering, and the crowd has grown significantly throughout the afternoon. Folks making their way throughout downtown. It started at Federal Plaza. There was another group that was circling. So you can imagine just how many people were here and how dangerous that would have been if that car would have veered just 1 foot to the left or to the right of where it went through. So many questions here on the ground, but the mission of these protesters remains clear. They are still protesting the presence of ICE here in Chicago, and did take a moment to make sure that those who were in the area of this car driving by were okay. We saw police officers making sure that those folks were okay, but this protest, as we mentioned, it continues, Joe.
Sabrina, thank you very much. You can see Skywatch is back over a large police presence, but we believe that shot is actually from, downtown. So I regret to say that it appears Skywatch has lost the vehicle that we were following there for quite some time. Let's bring in Marie Saavedra. Marie, you were just trying to leave here a short time ago and got caught back in the traffic of what was happening there.
I was just right on State Street, just outside of our studios. It was clear to me that the group, as Sabrina mentioned, was getting much larger. And so since they were marching and on the move, I watched as police were flowing with them and starting to block various streets. But I have to say, the moment where I can only imagine the car went through the crowd is the same moment that I, right about at State Street in Dearborn, saw officers, CPD officers, start to run. And they were running south. You heard radios squawking. You also saw a lot of people who might not necessarily have been a part of this demonstration, but are just leaving work or down here for any number of reasons, start to flow toward that area. It is where officers started running toward. And we see now what that immediate response was, and wondering if they're getting a lead on that car. I'm so glad we have that video. So again, it looks like at this point, we don't necessarily believe anyone was hurt, but we continue to wait and get more information on that as we watch this group continue to move, demonstrating against ICE raids across our country.
This crowd has grown considerably over the course of the last 2 hours. It started as a small gathering at Federal Plaza, and as you mentioned, Marie, it has grown, and sort of several groups that had maybe gathered in different areas came together. Sabrina mentioned that as well. It now stretches several blocks. Let's check in with our Jermont Terry. He's on the ground. And Jermont, I understand you've seen some arrests now.
That is correct. We have seen that we are currently at State and Monroe. We have seen about 2 individuals that have been taken into custody. As you can see, the police have their transport wagon here, and they have been right at this intersection for the majority of the afternoon when things got a little disruptive. We saw police. We hope to have some video for you momentarily. They were actually carrying one woman who was wrapped in a flag. She was an agitator from what we could tell from the scene. They then put her in the transport vehicle, and just about less than 2 minutes ago, we saw yet another person with her hands and being cuffed, also being taken in here. This is somewhat of the staging area that Chicago police are dealing with. As you know, they're dealing with that situation with the red vehicle right on Wabash, but just 1 block west here on State, they are trying to control the traffic. Taking into consideration, this is the middle of rush hour. Chicago police, they are out here in full force trying to maintain as this group essentially marches down and throughout the loop. Police are trying to make sure that the group is safe but not disrupting traffic. That's hard to do when you have so many pedestrians, not to mention CTA buses on the situation. Now, I believe that we may have that video in question. Let's roll that video. This is the video that I was referring to. This took place about 15 minutes ago. That's when Chicago police, you can see that they are carrying a young lady. She was wrapped in the flag. She was one of 2 people I saw being detained here and taken into the back of this police transport vehicle. What she did, unclear, but obviously Chicago police not taking any chances and being very clear with people. You have the right to protest, but at the same time, we want to make sure that you're doing it in a peaceful way. Again, this is the video right now of this individual who was carried at least by 2, 3, or 4 police officers, kind of, hog-tied as she was wrapped in that flag, then put into the police transport vehicle. What she did to get arrested and or detained to be determined. But again, if we come back live here, you can see that Chicago police, they have the southbound lanes of State Street blocked right now. This is somewhat their staging area. As whatever is going on, they're making sure that they have a way to get those who are detained. But again, as you know, with the police transport vehicle, Joe and Marie, this is what they do. They make sure that individuals can be detained and in a safe manner, and they will eventually process them in that process, in that time frame. But we do know that group continues to march here in the loop. Where they're going next to be determined, but you can tell by the group out here that Chicago police, they are ready in full force just to make sure that things maintain order. That's very late. It's going to send it back to you guys now in the studio.
Jermont, thank you so much for covering those arrests this evening. We're taking another look from CBS Skywatch as this large group, fairly spread out throughout the loop right now, has moved into Grant Park. From our estimations, it's a few different groups who are demonstrating in the loop tonight, protesting ICE raids across our country. They've sort of melded into one group and been a part of this demonstration that you've seen block off roads and only get larger over this evening. And it was the same group that was in the crosshairs of a vehicle earlier this evening. Well,
it has really been a very orderly demonstration. These folks who are out on the streets have been cooperative. You can see the method of the Chicago Police Department setting up bicycle officers at certain intersections, sending the demonstrators into certain directions.
Like you see here.
As you see here. And these protesters were following the orders and the instructions of CPD. There were even officers at the front and the back of these large groups. You can see it set up right here. So it's been very orderly, and until this moment we talked about just about 15 or 20 minutes ago, and if you're just joining us, we want to show you when a car blasted through a section of these demonstrators on State Street. We have the video now and we'll show you here. There's the red car that's coming in, and you'll see people trying to get out of the way, others standing in front, and others beating the car, trying to slow it down or stop it. And then you'll see the officer right there as it passed. There were officers lined up there, but the car was able to escape and then take off around the loop. And ultimately down, we tracked it all the way to Clark and Cicero, where our chopper Skywatch was unable to catch up with it. Cermak, sorry. And at that point, as we were talking live when this was happening, it is really hard to follow these vehicles considering the buildings, the overpasses, the underpasses. But it's unclear at this point where that car is right now, whether police have caught up with that driver. A woman did get out at that intersection of Clark and Cermak, and there were 2 people who were just crossing the street there who appeared to be trying to give the car a push, almost as if it had stalled. But then once the light turned green, the driver, a woman who got out of the car briefly, got back in and then took off again.
We are back now live looking at this demonstration as it goes through Grant Park. Joe mentioned CPD has been alongside this entire demonstration throughout the evening. they will continue to do so. We don't have any sense yet of how long this will go on into the evening, but we do intend to continue to follow it on our stream, CBS News Chicago, throughout the rest of the evening.
Right. We will get you right now back to ET, and if you're interested in our continued coverage, we will see you on the stream in just a minute.
CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather.
Thanks for being with us on the stream here in CBS News Chicago. We have been following an anti-ICE rally that started at Federal Plaza here in the Loop around 5:30 this afternoon. It's since moved throughout many locations in the Loop, mostly peaceful, though at one point extremely dangerous due to what has been the biggest headline coming out of this rally, which was a vehicle that got dangerously close to some of those protesters.
And Skywatch was overhead when it happened, so I believe we're going to roll that part of the video for you right here. But actually, before we do that, let's check in with Jermont. Jermont, you're at where? State and Monroe still, or no? Where are you?
I am, yes, Joe and Marie, I'm still here at State and Monroe, and you know that when we were on air, we were showing you that police had the transport vehicle where they were detaining people, where they were being disruptive on the streets. But if we walk south here on State Street, this is because traffic cannot go down south here on State because police are still lining this area. As you know, those demonstrators are still walking the streets of downtown, tried to get on DuSable Lakeshore Drive. They were unsuccessful, and police were able to push them back. But in the process of this demonstration, which started at Federal Plaza, we do know that I saw at least 2 people being detained. Let's get you to the video. This shows one woman who is wrapped in a flag, and you can see 4 officers carrying her, 2 by the hands and also by the foot. She is then put into that police transport vehicle. What she did to get arrested, still to be determined. But Chicago police, they are out here and have been out here monitoring the situation since around 4 o'clock this afternoon, when one group started, maybe 50 to 100 people. But when the actual rally started at Federal Plaza at 5:30. If I was guessing, there was close to nearly 400 to 500 people out there. We were right in the middle, listening to the demonstrators who were upset with the Trump administration's actions, which is going on with ICE. But as they took to the streets, they navigated through downtown and through the Loop. Keep in mind that Chicago police, they were clearly out here. They were ready for any movement that would take place. And I just want to show, we do have Chicago police officers. They're still out here monitoring the situation. And as you know, Chicago police, they just don't monitor on the ground. They have their chopper. They're able to navigate what's going on with the various air support that they also have. We do know 2 people were arrested here at State and Monroe. Our photojournalist Sam Vega also pointed out that he saw an additional 2 people being detained. What they did to be detained by Chicago police to be determined. But for the most part, the demonstrations have been peaceful as they navigate through the streets of downtown here in what is still considered rush hour. People have been walking by, unable to get to where they need to. But as this demonstration continues to move around the Loop, Chicago police are monitoring the situation, making sure that they are not disrupting traffic in a major way, and any agitators in that group, they are detaining and taking them into custody. That's the very latest reporting in the Loop at State and Monroe. Jermont Terry, CBS News, Chicago.
Thank you, Jermont. It's true, we have seen CPD following its own protocol, walking side by side with these demonstrators, but we want to show you this video we were talking about now. That is a red car growing through a crowd of these protesters just what, Joe, 45 minutes ago?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was about a half an hour ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And boy, that's scary when you see this, because I'm just thankful that this driver did stop, because short of stopping, they could have just plowed through a number of people right there. But right after this, the road opens up for this driver, and she then takes off on a roundabout trip through the Loop. Skywatch was overhead as that driver came very close to other cars and other other pedestrians on the road. And you'll see some of that here as the chase unfolds. But we thought at one point she might try to get on to, there's a divvy bike right there that she almost hit or had to go around. We thought maybe she would get on the Stevenson, but she didn't and continued. Skywatch ended up losing that car, unfortunately. Let's check back in with Sabrina Fonza. She's with the crowd. Sabrina.
Hey Joe, hey Marie. Right now we're walking just past the Art Institute. For a while, this group was headed their way towards Grant Park, made a loop, and now they're going back towards the heart of downtown here. You can hear, most likely, the CPD helicopter that has been hovering just above us for the last 20 minutes or so. Incredibly low to the ground for somebody that's not used to standing so close to a helicopter like this, monitoring what's going on here in the area as hundreds of people have made their way around the loop and then, like I mentioned, towards Grant Park and now back. It's unclear where this group is going, but as you've been talking about, incredibly scary moments for a car to be driving through a portion of the crowd. We spoke to somebody who witnessed what happened. Take a listen.
So basically what happened is people started running behind us. The Chicago police were on either side where State intersected Monroe, and instead of trying to block the car, they were trying to block the demonstrators. It was a miracle that nobody got hit. A sign was knocked over, somebody was knocked over, but nobody got seriously hurt. This is an example of the Chicago Police Department not doing their job of protecting the people and instead protecting the property of the rich.
Can you just talk me through the behavior of the car and what a miracle it is that nobody was seriously injured?
Well, the car continued to accelerate. It started off at State Street about 30 miles an hour. By the time it got to Michigan, it was going 50 miles an hour.
You heard that witness detail what happened just behind us as we were doing another live report here on our air. There was a few people that we noticed that were on the ground immediately after that car drove through, but a lot of the organizers as well as some police crowded around those people to make sure that they were okay. We don't know their exact conditions, but as we mentioned and as that witness testified, it doesn't appear like they were seriously injured, which really is incredible given how many people are on the ground here in the loop, still chanting, still adhering to the mission, why they decided to come out here earlier today, protesting against immigration enforcement here in Chicago. Joe, Marie.
I'm wondering if you can tell us where this crowd is heading, because it appeared at least at one point a large portion of the crowd was in Grant Park. Are they still there, do you know, or has part of the group broken off and headed down now wherever you are?
Joe, so we were approaching back into the direction of Grant Park when we saw the crowd that was gathered there make a loop and start filing out. And now here it seems like we're heading northbound on Michigan. I don't know if the crowd has a specific route. You can definitely hear some profanities, a lot of anger here downtown with the way that the Trump administration has been governing. But like I mentioned, it seems like now they're heading northbound on Michigan. We were trying to get in touch with the organizers of this protest earlier today to figure out if there's any sort of concrete plan, any route that was the plan to follow. We were not able to do that before the protest began, and as we've been reporting, it seems like there have been multiple groups that have converged into one here. This group is much larger than the anticipated size of earlier today, and I think the way that Chicago police have responded is reflected in that. We've seen a lot of people earlier today on bikes, on foot, and of course the helicopter we showed you a little bit earlier, but this crowd has kind of surpassed the presence of Chicago police, at times walking around them to continue their protest in Grant Park and now, as we mentioned, up Michigan Avenue, Joe.
All right, Sabrina, thank you. We'll be in touch.
We see a lot of Chicagoans there exercising their right to protest and to demonstrate. We do know, as we're giving you live pictures, that it's possible there may be some signs or actions where people have profanity on the screen, but it is part of being in that mix. And we are going to our Jamont Terry right now, who I understand is in a position where the crowd is walking up Michigan and going toward him. If we can go back to Jamont.
Yes, Marie, we are currently at State and Adams, and this group is currently heading west on Adams in the direction of Federal Plaza, where they started around 6:15. So here we are, about 50 minutes into their demonstration. They're now coming back towards the Federal Plaza. As Sabrina mentioned, this is a very large group. If we pan a little up, I want to show them. This is the air support. Pan up, Pat. You can see that Chicago police, they have been monitoring this, not just from the ground, but the air support. That is what they've been dealing with. And as this group comes down Adams here, they are just coming down, in the middle of traffic. They're blocking traffic without any escort whatsoever. And this is where the confusion can come about when you're just driving and the crew and a bunch of people start coming down the streets. We're going to keep a safe distance as this group has been marching for close to an hour now. Where they are going next to be determined, but you can see that this large group, close to 400 that started out at Federal Plaza, has made their way through the streets of downtown Chicago. And as we approach the 7 o'clock hour, this group continues to march. Where they are going to be determined. Chicago police, as we mentioned, they have been staging. See, you just saw a young lady. People are getting caught in this, not knowing what they're just trying to get home, and they're seeing the demonstrations. That's what that lady experienced. State Street, as I mentioned here, between Adams and Monroe, is where Chicago police have been staging. They have somewhat eased this way, which allow for this demonstration and these demonstrators to continue to march. They are now heading north on State, not in the direction of Federal Plaza, where they're going to be determined. But they again have been marching for close to an hour, trying to get their voices heard about their opposition to the way that the Trump administration has been dealing with these immigration processes with ICE as a whole. All right, as you understand, there are many people, when we give a live event, people are going to try to agitate even the media, and we're trying our best to curb that as well. But for the most part, this is what we have been experiencing in the streets of downtown, and they are marching now. We hear them saying, whose streets? Our streets. There are plenty chants. Many groups are out here, but for the most part, we're going to monitor this group, Joe and Marie, and see exactly where they go. If we had to guess, we would imagine that they will eventually head back to Federal Plaza, where they started just close to an hour ago. Sending back to you now.
Jermont, thank you. And that gives us a sense that was the beginning of this march. And Sabrina was already back pretty far south on Michigan Avenue, so it gives you a sense of just how long this path is, and we'll continue to watch to see where they're going next. You see a lot of signs, a lot of people wanting to make their voices heard, protesting against actions by ICE in Los Angeles and in other parts of this country. I want to talk about a little bit about what's happening in the loop. If you have someone who's either a part of this protest or someone who is caught in traffic, I know it's not the biggest headline, but it might impact you or your family. There are several streets, because of this march, shut down as it continues to move. It's been tough to get buses through, CTA, lots of just many impacts. If you have anyone who's been down here or is trying to get home, it likely will be like that for some time as this group moves. But you do see, you don't see plainclothes, but you do see many police officers from CPD mixed into this crowd. No doubt they might be on that back side, so they're not necessarily at this side that we're seeing with Jermont's camera. But we have watched as, especially on bikes, these bike officers are ahead of the crowd, behind it, and also alongside it in order to provide some level of protection. Also, there you see CPD air support keeping an eye on this group. Joe, you brought up an interesting point. We have talked to our viewers about that red vehicle that went through a crowd of people earlier this evening. No injuries reported as of this moment. We're still working to confirm that. But we're wondering if our helicopter was able to follow that car. Curious if CPD had a resource that was also able to follow that car.
Well, if you're just joining us, here is that video of the car blasting through the demonstrators and almost hitting a handful of them there, and then another one who was lucky to get out of the way, and then you'll see again a police officer here at the end tapping it, but the car was able to blast through. I think as we've watched this, the crowd has just gotten so large that it's become almost unmanageable for CPD, because in the early part of this demonstration, I would say around 3 or 4, part of this group passed right through our street side studio here at Dearborn and Washington, right at Daley Plaza. And the group was only about a half a block long, and the police were able to set up their bikes and direct this group the way they wanted them to go. But I think it got to a point where there were so many of them, there just was no way CPD could get either ahead of or on all sides of this.
That's true. Sabrina, I know we're coming back to you. Have you seen CPD sticking with the crowd in that consistent fashion, or have things really sort of spread out from your perspective?
It does seem like things have started to spread, especially after we made that loop in Grant Park and now are making our way pretty much back to where this protest began, closer to State Street, Federal Plaza. This group is more so trailing the front that you mentioned, where Chicago police are with their bicycles. People chanting, very peaceful from this portion, and I guess because of just the sheer width of State Street, there is plenty of space for people to spread out, so it does not feel as condensed as it felt when we were in Federal Plaza, when we were standing and there were cars that were nearby. There are some cars right here that are stuck. As you mentioned, that this is causing many traffic issues, traffic concerns. Some people sticking out their heads from the windows and supporting these protests. Others seemingly just don't really know what to do because they're stuck in the middle of a massive crowd on their way home, presumably from work here. So if you forgive me for looking back just to make sure we don't hit anything, these protesters are now weaving their way through these cars, in addition to weaving their way through the streets and around the loop to continue their protest. And I don't suspect, Marie, that this crowd won't feel in any way that it'll be completely as, widely spread as it was just a few moments ago, because as we've been following them, it's almost as if it's an accordion effect where people have really just consolidated and then spread out as this trail of people continues to make their way around.
And I'm seeing people that are taking videos of the protests on their cell phones. I'm seeing tourists. And I also have to think about those buses. It's possible, I'm wondering if we can peek in, if they were put there as more of a safety measure, or if those are commuters that are on those buses and stopped in traffic at this point.
We've definitely seen a mix of both.
Okay.
There are some people that are honking in solidarity. I've seen some officers parked on the sides here, but for example, you have all of these buses that don't say out of service. It seems as if they're kind of stuck here. And there are some folks that are with their hazards on, just parked because they don't really know what to do or how long this crowd will go for before they can continue moving, which is also dangerous because we've seen people try to peel off and make a turn to get out of the crowd, only to be met with the crowd once again at the next intersection. So if you're downtown and you're trying to get around, it's going to be incredibly difficult just because of the sheer size of this crowd.
Right. Even as a peaceful protest, it is creating some circumstances that we'll be dealing with possibly for a few more hours. But Sabrina, thank you for giving us a sense of what things look like on the ground right now.
Let's check back in with Jermont. Jermont, last time we saw you, you were at State, and I think this group was heading north from where you are, right? Where are you now?
We're still at State and Adams right now. You can see this group, but we also have police blocking streets. We're going to pan a little bit to the left and piggyback on what's to the right and show you what Sabrina was just talking about. These are buses, the 29th State CTA bus. These are people trying to get home. The buses are on their regular routes along busy State Street, and they cannot move. They're being directed and rerouted around this crowd. So yes, people who rely on the CTA are impacted, as this group, several hundred, if not 1,000, are walking throughout the streets. They are now heading north on State Street, a large and diverse group of people, all voicing their concerns about the actions that have been taking place by ICE. But as Sabrina was talking about, we know this is impacting people just trying to get home because they want to disrupt the flow to bring their message very clear that something needs to be done. Those were the words echoed when this group started out this early evening at Federal Plaza. And here we are more than an hour later. They continue to march the streets of downtown, and this is one of many protests that we are expecting in the days to come as people across the country, and specifically here in Chicago, are in fact voicing their outrage by what they believe the Trump administration is doing. Whether they like it or not, they're not satisfied. Again, as I want to point out, this is a very diverse group. I have seen just about every ethnic group out here, people of different races, all voicing their concerns. So while this is about immigration, you have people here in Chicago who are just voicing their outrage, and they are not happy. I am surprised by the amount of people who continue to come down Adams and heading north on State Street. I've been in this location, Joe and Marie, for about 10 minutes, and we saw the original shot when they were coming west on Adams, and here they are more than 15 minutes later. I do not see an end to this group. We do know, as we pointed out, Chicago police, they are monitoring this on the ground. They also have their air support. We know that CPD has several choppers, and they are most definitely monitoring this, trying to allow the group to voice their opinion and their civil rights to protest. But they want to make sure this is done in a safe manner. We did see at least 2 individuals being detained, placed into the transport vehicles for various reasons. Why, we do not know, but I can say for the vast majority of this group who has been walking around the loop for more than an hour, we've seen a lot of peaceful demonstration, and that continues now in the close 7 o'clock hour. So that's what we have here at State and Adams as this group continues to move north on State. Where they're going to be determined, but you can depend on CBS News Chicago and our team to give you the very latest as this continues to navigate through the downtown area. Back to you, Joe and Marie.
Jermon, thank you so much. I did want to ask you, as we talk about the reason why so many people are out here, it looks to me like the majority, understandably, the majority of the signs out there are referencing ICE and issues with immigration. There you see a Mexican flag. But I have seen some other signs referencing, for example, the war in Gaza and other items. So if we still have Jermont, I wanted to ask him if you can describe sort of the tenor. Is it predominantly ICE and other topics that people are speaking their mind about as part of this crowd? You're noticing it's a wider scope of commentary?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that question, but I also want to show you at the end of the demonstration, look who we have marching right behind this group. Chicago police, they are out and the tail end, making sure that no one disrupts the demonstrators, but also making sure that the demonstrators do not do anything nefarious. As to regards to your question, Marie, yes, there are many people for various reasons. 1 second, I'm going to make sure my photojournalist is safe here as he moves. Okay, I'm going to get back to this question. Let's walk this way, Pat. I'm walking down north on State Street. Chicago police are at the tail end of this demonstration, which obviously took about 15 minutes for the entire group to come through. In regards to your question, Marie, yes, many people have various reasons for their demonstration. We should point out that the ICE actions is just what has driven most people out. Yes, they have people who are demonstrating the war in Gaza, but the consensus and what I've heard from people who are out here today, they say no matter the cause, they said, quote, no one is illegal. We are all humans. So therefore their cause for being out here, it may be for Gaza, it may be for ICE, but they see a unified solidarity, and that is what they're hoping for as they continue to navigate this process. So I want to see, I know we had our photojournalist Sam Vega, he's on the scene. Sam, you were able to witness at least 2 people being detained earlier today. Can you talk about if they were agitators or something of that nature?
You never know in these situations if they're an agitator, if they're part of an organization or what. The fact of the matter is they were detained, and we don't know where they're headed or what they got. But
police, they were just had to get that group. I know we have so many people out here. Can you describe the police action of what you saw?
I just saw police detaining 2 individuals, and they took them in for questioning by a squad car and tried to calm them down. They were pretty heated. All right. And there's a lot of emotions running through the crowd tonight. So.
You've been walking with this group for the tail end as we continue to show this picture. Sam, let's just talk about it. You've seen them navigate all throughout the streets tonight, right?
I have. I've been on foot with these guys and girls for about maybe an hour and a half now. And they're trying to take over the streets, basically. They've broken apart from police have told them to do.
We're going to pause right quick because this is what they did not want. As this group passed down State Street, we can now see that some of the squad cars have been defaced by police. There's some profanity on these vehicles, so we are not going to show you all of this. If our photojournalist can pan quickly to his right so we won't show the profanity, but this is what this group did as they marched down North State Street. This was not here before this group came. These cars were parked. Now we have at least several Chicago police squad cars that are now defaced with graffiti. Now, is this considered peaceful? And one would argue no, but this is what Chicago police are dealing with now, as they have several vehicles that are now, that were parked here along State Street, that are now been defaced with various graffiti. Things can be replaced, but this is not what Chicago police would consider peaceful when you have taggers and or vehicles being defaced like this. Again, we are not trying to show you all of the words because there is profanity on these vehicles. But again, Joe and Maurice, remember this group was walking here on North State Street, close, and it took them about 15 minutes to pass, but this is the end result when in fact they passed and they saw what were clearly Chicago police vehicles and squad vehicles unmarked, but you knew they were squad vehicles. We do not know if in fact officers were inside these vehicles when this took place, but obviously by the time this group passed, this is the aftermath, and one can say this is not considered peaceful demonstration. So Chicago police are going to continue to monitor this group, and that's why they're watching on the tail end to see what they're doing. As you heard our photojournalist Sam Vega say, he witnessed various people getting arrested. I saw 2 people getting detained. Maybe this, again, this could be the reason why police are taking people in, if they see people doing illegal acts and or nefarious acts as well. Back to you, Joe and Marie.
Sure, Jermont, thank you so much. We appreciate you showing us that. We're looking at another picture now from Skywatch. We saw another vehicle, might have been a police vehicle or someone trying to get out of the way of this group as it is moving. I believe that might be another look at this march going north on State Street. That's what we believe this group is doing. When you think about what these people are saying tonight, and you have to think about the scope, Jermont mentioned he had that shot of the entire crowd from start to finish when we saw those CPD officers. It was roughly 15 minutes. We're talking about thousands of people in the streets right now of the Loop in Chicago, making their voices heard, protesting actions taken by ICE and the federal government in Los Angeles and other areas. As far as we saw that bit of vandalism, we haven't heard any other reports of people being hurt. We have witnesses from our crews that have seen possibly a handful of people detained.
So let me just jump in here. Chris,
Sure.
Did you say north of the river? Okay, so we're being told that this group is on Dearborn now north of the river. So if that's the case, they've moved out of the Loop and are heading toward River North. Okay. Let's check back in with Sabrina Franza, because the last time we were able to check in with her, she was on Michigan, but I believe they were heading north as well. Sabrina, as I toss to you, I did want to ask you whether this is a preview of something we have not talked about yet over the last hour and a half or so, and that is the protest scheduled nationwide on Saturday called No Kings.
And Joe, we talked to the organizers of the No Kings protest here in Chicago, and they called Chicago an anchor city for that protest, which has been on the books since February. They've been planning this, and now given what's happened in Los Angeles and the overall mood of the country, especially in cities like Chicago, it is very possible that on a Saturday in the middle of a weekend where the weather is supposed to be clear, that this crowd is just a snapshot of what we might see in a few days from now. And as you mentioned, we are headed towards River North. The bridge is just behind me here. So this crowd has put on miles this afternoon, wrapping all the way around the Loop, at times for some folks multiple times over, and then turning around and making their way northbound on Michigan, now headed towards River North. So, and we talk about the No Kings rally on Saturday. That is one of, they said, around 1,800 demonstrations that have been planned across the country, from small towns to big cities like Chicago, Philly, other anchor cities that they mentioned to us today. And the goal was to protest against the actions of the federal government, to do so peacefully. But as we've seen here today, the route has been confusing. The organization has been hard to nail down. And we know the organizers for this rally have had a plan since February. So it'll be interesting to see how that materializes on the 14th, which is the same day as we know, the president's birthday, the military parade that is planned, that celebration that he has planned for that day. Now, this demonstration, like we mentioned, making its way across the bridge here, and by doing so, also blending into even more traffic that the folks here did not anticipate meeting a crowd of protesters here today. Chicago police lining now this side of the bridge to at least section off a portion of it from cars, from protesters. You can see they're not confronting anybody. They're just standing, blocking the street here, blocking the bridge. With the construction going on the State Street Bridge, this bridge is much more congested than normal, as it is on this one-way street headed northbound. As these protesters are now making their way across, some are now heading back towards the loop, it seems, in this live look that you're seeing here, as others cross the bridge to make their way towards River North. So as we mentioned, it's not really clear where the end of this will be, but this crowd has continued on, and with the car that we saw earlier today driving through the crowd and people rushing to help to make sure that everyone was okay, this crowd continues. And some of the folks that we've seen at 4 o'clock, at 5:30 at Federal Plaza are still here. We recognize some of these signs here. So these people are the same. There's more and more of them. People have gotten off work. They're joining the crowd. And the chants continue. Joe, Marie.
Looks like, was this group that you're showing us here the one that looked like it might be turning back toward the loop and not crossing the bridge, but they're now crossing?
Yeah.
Okay, so
there are two. It seems like it's kind of split off.
Interesting to note as we follow both groups, what might turn into both groups.
Skywatch you looking at on the right side of your screen is at Dearborn in Illinois. So as we mentioned, they are into River North now, or at least part of this group. But this group, as we pointed out, has grown considerably and is in the thousands, I think, is a safe estimate when you see, as Jermont pointed out, how far this group stretches from end to end, from start to finish. But it does seem as if at least parts of this group are starting to splinter and head in different directions. And it appears that some of the CPD officers you saw right here lined up are trying to force this group into one area or another, at least, but they're in so many different parts of the city. That's going to be a tall order for sure. But you can see these officers are at Dearborn in the river. You can see the corncob buildings behind there, Marina Towers. But at this point, to sort of echo what we've seen, short of some people who've tagged police cars, this has been a relatively cooperative and peaceful protest, short of the 2 arrests we've seen. And when you consider how many people are out there, I guess you could say certainly that is a low number. And again, Marie, as you said, the headline of the afternoon, which was the car that sped through this group of protesters near State and Monroe, giving everyone a scare as we watch that live on Skywatch.
I want to mention as well, we are referencing that driver as a woman because during our live coverage, we saw at one point the driver of that vehicle get out of the car. We were able to see her and get a bit of a good look at her. Then she was able to get back into the car and drive off. No word on what the status of that investigation is right now. But as Joe mentioned, that happened right at State and Monroe. That is where our Jermont Terry has been stationed for much of the last half hour. Jermont, what are you seeing at that location now?
Standing by, standing by. Yeah, I am currently, Marie, at State and Monroe still. Southbound lanes of State Street are still blocked between Monroe and Adams. We just wanted to show you, this is what, when those demonstrators came through, we showed you this before, but they obviously tagged many of the squad cars that were parked here. This is where CPD were essentially staging. As you know, you can see what we can show you. This one right here, say, free GA, could be an indication of Gaza or whatever they were tagging. This has been an issue that put CPD, they were trying to prevent. But again, when you have close to 500 people or more walking down the street, they cannot always stop everyone. CPD doing the best they can to make sure that this crew maintains order, and these guys have been out here for the majority of the afternoon making sure that people are safe. You have mentioned that one incident. I want to make sure our security team watched this vehicle that's gotten down the street here, excuse me, but they want to make sure that people are in fact safe. You guys mentioned that one red vehicle that came close to hitting the demonstrators and the protesters. The purpose of why she did that, to be determined, but keep in mind, when people were just trying to get home, I've seen a lot of people getting caught in the middle of this, whether they were in vehicles or not, just making sure that they were caught by surprise by the amount of people walking in the streets. Here it is what? 7:15 on a Tuesday. It is not normal for me to walk on State Street and traffic being blocked. But again, this is the problem that comes about when demonstrators take to the streets and no one really knows the true organizers. You heard Sabrina say earlier that she was trying throughout the day to get in contact with this group that started the demonstration at Federal Plaza, but there were so many groups that came together at Federal Plaza, it was unclear who was actually orchestrating and organizing this event. But as we continue to walk down State Street, I'm going to be careful because Chicago police, this is their staging area. They're still monitoring the situation. We have been aware that top brass CPD officers are out here monitoring this situation, and that is important. I have not seen Superintendent Larry Snelling out here, but we do know top CPD brass on the streets monitoring the situation as this group has traveled from Federal Plaza all the way, tried to get on DuSable Lakeshore Drive. I want to show you some video that we were able to shoot earlier in the day. This was around maybe 6 o'clock, 6:15, close to the 6:30 hour. It shows individuals being arrested. If we have that video, let's take it. We want to show, I saw 2 individuals getting arrested. This video shows the young lady being carried by her hands and feet, wrapped in a flag, as police took her and then put her in the transport vehicle. As you heard, our photojournalist Sam Vega, he also mentioned that he saw police detain several people. Why they were detained, to be determined. But I can tell you this much, when we come back live, when this group came down State Street on North, here on State Street, and they tagged these vehicles, not a single person was detained because we were standing here and that group continued on. So there's a good chance that CPD witnessed what happened, and that goes to show the de-escalation that they're dealing with. Even though they're seeing individuals, it may have not been advantageous for them to pull someone when they're surrounded and outnumbered in a crowd. So yes, it's not good to see any police squad defaced in this manner, but keep in mind, you have to they deal with de-escalation training, and maybe being the aggressor in a crowd like that would not have been advantageous for any of the officers. Yeah. At this hour, we do not know of any serious injuries and/or major arrests related to all of the demonstrations that have been taking place here in the Loop, and we're going to monitor the situation as we have been doing here on CBS News Chicago.com and on air in the stream. Joe and Marie.
That may be changing, Jermont, because we're looking at Sabrina Franzo's location right now, and it appears that police have moved in. This is on Wacker. You can see the building behind there, 55W is for Wacker. It appears that they're trying to address this crowd, or at least keep them maybe from going north, any more of them, as we've seen a large number of people have already made it across the river on Dearborn. And I'm not sure exactly, this may be at Dearborn as well.
I believe it is, Joe, yes.
Yeah, so it looks like they've stopped people from crossing the river and keeping them in the Loop instead of allowing them to move into River North.
We know some at least have moved into River North. It does seem like that splintering happened. As we listen in here, we're hearing chants. You see police there prepared in their gear to deal with a crowd that again has been mostly peaceful outside of tagging some vehicles. And I'm curious to listen in, if we can, any of this conversation. You see some officers on the move there.
Let's check in with Sabrina. Sabrina, what exactly happened before we came to your shot there?
Hey, Joe Marie. So we're standing, as you mentioned, we're at the corner now of Dearborn and Wacker, and as the crowd was trying to make their way across the street, there was some sort of argument between a demonstrator and the police. There was a struggle that ensued, and it appears as if that person might have been taken into custody, or some de-escalation has happened since. Now, if we take a look here, if we can just turn around, Alfredo, really quick, this line now has been formed further down the bridge, a secondary line to keep people from crossing the bridge further than they already have. Now we're standing pretty much in the middle of the two lines of police on either side of this bridge here on Dearborn. Police trying, as we mentioned, to make sure that no more protesters make their way into River North than have already done so, that you saw in our last hit when you came to us a few moments ago. So this area now clear on the bridge of demonstrators, with the exception of some people on either side of the pedestrian walkway, but the roadway itself is now cleared as Chicago police work to secure this area that was previously overwhelmed by demonstrators making their way from the loop towards River North. We do not know where this crowd is headed. It is unclear where the folks that made their way into River North are going, and we also saw, as we mentioned earlier, another group that has peeled off and made their way back towards Michigan in the loop itself. We have seen folks from the mayor's team on staff trying to make sure that police are doing their job correctly. We have seen folks, high-ranking police officers within the Chicago Police Department, trying to make sure that the people's First Amendment rights to protest are protected. And so many of those officers have made their way here, it seems, to this portion of the border of River North and downtown to mitigate these crowds in some way. Of course, you know, as soon as you leave the loop, it becomes an even more serious traffic concern for those who are trying to make their way out of the loop and head home. This bridge is now closed, as well as obviously the State Street Bridge is closed for construction. So this is going to become a traffic nightmare as police try to get this under control. Joe Marie.
Yeah, it's already a traffic nightmare in the loop. We're watching several police squad cars going by our street-side studio here at Dearborn and Washington. It's unclear where they're heading, but it appears we're hearing now that this large group that had made it into River North has now turned off of Dearborn and has at least tried now to circle back, maybe to head south back into the loop. But this is one section of a large group of protesters we've been telling you about this afternoon. Some of them are still being held behind the river, south on Dearborn. The police are lined up now, not allowing them to cross. So this group that did get across the river and into River North is now apparently heading back around and south into the loop again.
It's thousands of people. It's possible, we don't know this for sure, but there may have been strategy in trying to separate a little bit of that group, to have the people that were in River North sort of cut off there at the bridge at Dearborn, as we see a more face-to-face interaction where Sabrina is, where we're seeing police and these demonstrators sort of figure out what's next. We thought it was possible that this would return to where it started, which was Federal Plaza, just about 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Not clear that that is what's happening now.
Clark and Ontario is where they are. So if they're heading south, they're on Clark, heading back toward the loop. You know, something came to me as we've been listening to Jamont and Sabrina talk about the police tactics here, and it sends me back to the DNC last summer, when I think police were expecting somewhere upwards of 20 to 25,000 protesters, remember, at Union Park. Now that didn't materialize, but police were certainly praised for their handling of that, and it appears, at least part of what I remember from that, Sabrina, is when it happened, they allowed people to do what you're seeing them to do right now. But if there were agitators, they pulled them out of the crowd, they arrested them, they removed them from the situation, and it looks like that's what they're doing here tonight as well.
We saw that in Jermont's video. He was able to capture a woman being taken into custody, or again using de-escalation tactics, just being able to sort of pluck her out and isolate her as opposed to fanning some flames within the bigger crowd. And you see, I'm trying to look in Sabrina's picture right now. It does seem like maybe some of those demonstrators are the ones ones who are a little bit more on the move, although I see some gathered there. It just does appear like that crowd of what looked to be a pretty good mix of officers and demonstrators is not as large at that intersection as it was even just a few minutes ago.
Here's another subtle, I guess, sign of how Chicago police handles these, and you've noticed it in Los Angeles. The police there, in many cases, are wearing riot gear. They're wearing helmets. You know, in this situation, most of what you see with CPD on these demonstrations, they're on bicycles. They're not all geared up, which some might argue. Again, I don't know how people look at these, you know, psychologically from a standpoint of people who are already sort of worked up and protesting to run into people who they think might be looking for a fight. Is it smarter to use these tactics rather than what we're seeing in LA? You can debate that, but I think it's maybe a testament to why we haven't seen some of the confrontation that you see in other cities when police show up almost as if they're looking for a fight. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I think it's certainly intentional on the part of CPD.
We had many police experts during the DNC talk about those, the impact of those visuals, Joe, so I do think you're really onto something. We know that demonstrations similar to this have happened in other American cities today. There was protesting outside the immigration headquarters in New York, as well as outside of an immigration court in Seattle. Now we have Chicago, demonstrators outside of the Federal building, Federal Plaza. Where they go next, if they stay here trying to engage with police, making their voices heard to these officers, it's possible. You have to imagine that's what that man that you see standing on one of those concrete pylons or planters is doing. But for everyone else, they are, as you see here, still on the move on the right side of your screen. We believe it's possible, Joe, is this the group? Okay, Hotel Felix, that was in River North.
Right, that's the group on the right on Skywatch. That's the group heading back south, I believe. And it's unclear where that other group and where they went from Dearborn right there. But it looks like traffic is now getting through. So where that back half of the group of protesters went is unclear at this point. But this goes back to what Sabrina was saying just a minute ago, is that this No Kings protest that is set up for Saturday.
Yes.
I know one of the main locations is Daley Plaza. It's unclear how many will be gathering there, but I'm assuming will be as large as this group has been tonight. But there are a number of others that are around in the suburbs, different areas, north and south of Chicago. And then, as Sabrina mentioned, 1,800 of these protests set up nationwide on Saturday. And to your point, your question to Jermont, what are they protesting? There's several things. You heard someone walk by Jermont at the end there and say "Free Palestine." So you can imagine that. But these No Kings were really aimed at what they consider to be President Trump's authoritarian rule here in his second term. So it's to coincide with this military parade he set up for Saturday that coincides with his birthday. And it also, don't forget, here in Chicago on Saturday, we have the big celebration of Pope Leo XIV at the Rate at Sox Park. So there's going to be a lot going on Saturday.
Keep that in mind if you're a Chicagoan, if you're coming into the city or out, you're just staying aware of the happenings, and be sure to stick with us as we cover all of those events. Let's go back now to our Sabrina Franza. She is right there at Wacker and Dearborn. She's the shot where you see there on the left side of your screen, where we are looking at these officers watching some traffic go by. Sabrina, could you see which way the group, as of what's left of it from that location, was moving?
Hey, Marie. So yes, as you mentioned, we're on Dearborn and Wacker now, and this bridge making into River North is totally shut down. This is the last line of police before cars or pedestrians can use this roadway and make their way into River North. And that was done in part to separate some of the protesters that made their way across the bridge from the rest of the group, which it appears from where we were standing that they made their way towards the lake, back towards Michigan, towards Grant Park, where we were earlier, where that large group, as it was in its entirety, gathered for a few brief moments before they decided to make a loop around and then continue headed in this direction. This part of the bridge continues to be closed, but as you can see, it does appear like traffic is moving much more freely on the other side of this line of police officers. Cars are having a much easier time getting where they need to go, at least it seems from where we're standing, so long as they are not trying to make their way across the bridge here into River North. And I want to give you just a visual of what this empty roadway looks like here. On the other side, you have somebody waving a Mexican flag in solidarity with seemingly folks who have immigrated to the United States from Mexico. Of course, Chicago has a large population of Mexican immigrants, and the culture of the Mexican community is so pervasive here in our city. It is a total sign of the time. If you wanted to take just a snapshot of today and have that be the cover photo, it almost rings true to what these protesters have been saying all day, which is that they are against the immigration enforcement actions by the Trump administration, specifically to new arrivals, immigrants, people who have been here for 20 years and have been showing up to do what they needed to do to court, to getting to their appointments, and then faced some sort of detention action, some sort of immigration action, or just are dealing with the fear of being deported, living here in Chicago, a sanctuary city. A city that has been welcoming and has been made up of immigrants. So this person, this lone protester now, it seems, on the other side of the bridge, really holding the line opposite of the Chicago police that are standing on the opposite side of this bridge into River North. Somebody that made their way seemingly around the loop and was one of the only people still standing on the other side of this bridge, really telling the story of this afternoon just by simply standing there and waving a flag. Marie Jo.
It's quite a picture. Sabrina, thank you. We're starting to see some of the landmarks, although it looks like they've made a turn now.
Yes.
They were at the Rock and Roll McDonald's right there at Ontario and Clark.
It looked like, yeah, they were headed south on Clark, but now I'm trying to use these landmarks to figure out their next move. And again, this is just one. I believe, let's see, I think they are turning on Grand briefly.
Oh, there's another part of the group there.
Okay. Our crews are trying to keep tabs on the various factions of this larger group of demonstrators that have broken off in some points, but it looks like they're possibly coming back together. Let's see, right there on Clark.
Yeah, see, now you can see the police vehicles there. They're definitely trying to herd this group into a certain direction now. So again, you know, as especially CPD prepares for the No Kings protests on Saturday, there was a game plan going into this today, and they've become quite used to handling these crowds. But as we said, this one really got quite large and almost unmanageable, if you will. So at that point, you really almost just sort of have to maybe pick a spot to try to cut them off and force them in a certain direction. Because as we said, there were officers who were walking at the front, and as we saw with Germont, at the back of this group too, in several locations. And it's another thing that I guess, you know, when you're in these protests, maybe folks don't think about, but it does become sort of an us against them, and you see people tagging police vehicles when, in essence, part of the rub here in Chicago between President Trump and the city is that he doesn't like the fact that we are a sanctuary city. So in many instances, folks who are upset with CPD might be looking in the wrong direction.
And it is part of CPD's job to protect these demonstrators.
Sure.
It is part of what happens in America, that they are also looking out for the safety of those people. It's why those streets are blocked off. It's why CPD is at the head, and why 2 hours ago, when much of this march started, we saw officers really lining the sides of this, protecting people involved. But at this point, it has just become so spread out. I have to think, Joe, that it's likely with this group headed back south, it is possible that they could regroup back at Federal Plaza.
Right. That's probably a good guess. Or Daley Plaza.
Or Daley Plaza. I think that might be a central gathering space for everyone to come back together. And we will continue to watch and see if that happens.
We will. Okay, we're going to step aside here for just a minute, but we will certainly keep an eye on what's happening downtown as these protesters continue to march through River North and also the Loop on what's been a very busy afternoon.
We will also continue to work our sources and gather information on that vehicle that we saw come dangerously close to people during the protest tonight to further confirm that there have been no injuries after that red vehicle that we last saw speeding through the south side was coming through the crowd and not hurting any of these demonstrators when that happened back at State and Monroe.
Well, we're fortunate no one was hurt. As that witness said, you know, it's really, it's lucky that no one was hurt or killed in that situation. But we will certainly keep an eye on the situation downtown. If something happens that we need to pass along, we will jump back on the stream here, or we'll cut into CBS News Chicago, and we will absolutely have the latest coming up tonight on our news at 10.
keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago.
Breaking news in Los Angeles as the city finds itself in a fifth day of demonstrations over deportation sweeps by ICE agents. Minutes ago, officers from the LAPD confronted protesters in the streets. Hundreds of Marines have now been deployed to that city, along with 2,000 more National Guard troops now acting in a federal capacity at President Trump's direction.
We have team coverage as protests are popping up nationwide, including here in Chicago. Let's start with CBS News correspondent Danya Backus in Los Angeles. Danya.
Yeah, and here in just the last hour or so, there has been an increased police presence, as you guys said, because there was some type of incident with protesters and law enforcement. We've been in here for most of the morning, and there have been peaceful protests until about the last hour when we saw police moving in and moving some of those protesters. That barricade now set up here with protesters coming to this area and standing in front of them. This all comes as thousands of National Guard troops are in Los Angeles. Police and small groups of protesters clashed in Los Angeles for a fourth night.
This is not right. They should not be coming into our city and shooting us with rubber bullets while we're trying just to express our concerns, just to get them to do things a different way.
Police say they arrested nearly 100 people following isolated instances of violence and looting, like at this Apple store in downtown Los Angeles.
The unrest that has happened are a few blocks within the downtown area. It is not all of downtown, and it is not all of the city.
On Monday, President Trump doubled the number of National Guard troops deployed to L.A. to 4,000. 700 Marines have also arrived. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass insists the uninvited military presence is unnecessary and accuses the president of escalating tensions.
feel like we've all been in Los Angeles a part of a grand experiment to see what happens when the federal government decides they want to roll up on a state or roll up on a city and take over.
As these protests continue, today state officials asked a federal judge to grant a temporary restraining order that blocks troops from engaging in law enforcement activities such as searches and arrests. Protesters have also taken to the streets in other cities, including Dallas and San Francisco.
This is the community talking, right? So it shows that we know that immigrants are part of our community. These are the folks that we work with, go to school with, my kid goes to school with.
Tuesday, President Trump said he hasn't ruled out invoking the Insurrection Act. He also put other cities on notice if demonstrations get out of hand.
I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here.
He added troops will remain in Los Angeles, quote, until there is no danger. And though there is a lot of activity right now, I want to stress once again that these protests have been peaceful for most of the day until about the last hour. And even as police started to disperse the crowd, it still remained relatively peaceful here. Just want to give you guys a little perspective of just how much all of this is costing. Well, a top Pentagon official testified to Congress that the estimated cost of deploying the National Guards and U.S. Marines to Los Angeles is around $134 million.
The death toll has now risen to 10 people killed in a high school shooting in Austria. Those victims include children as young as 14 years old. About a dozen other students are hurt. Authorities say a 21-year-old former student used a shotgun and a pistol to carry out that attack in the Austrian city of Graz. The shooter later then took his own life in a school bathroom. Officials haven't given a motive, but they do say that shooter acted alone.
Right now at 5, DePaul University is warning people after a student was robbed just a block from a student residence. This was the last in a string of at least 4 robberies last night. They happened within 30 minutes of each other in Lincoln Park and Lakeview. Since then, police say they found the car the thieves were using in West Garfield Park. No one's been arrested.
7 people are recovering after an apartment fire in Joliet. Flames shot from the roof of this building on Essington Road just after 8 this morning. Firefighters were rescuing 3 people. They were able to get them off of their balconies. We're told all of the injuries are just minor. The cause of that fire is still under investigation.
Ronald McDonald House has a new space to help families of children with medical challenges. After a 6-month renovation project, the charity unveiled its new kitchen and dining space at the location near Lurie Children's Hospital. The upgrades will help chefs and volunteers with their Meals from the Heart program. Officials say it's one less worry for families.
It will allow us to be more efficient, more effective in our meal procurement, and really make sure that we are providing nutritional food for our families as they navigate a really challenging and difficult time.
Ronald McDonald House has 10 locations throughout the Chicagoland area, taking care of more than 180 families each night. Join CBS Chicago for our morning show tomorrow to hear.
CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago. keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago.
Y'all ready, right? Y'all ready, right? Y'all ready? The first person that fucks up, y'all coming.
So bikers can take up the fucking highway, but we can't take up the damn street? That's fucked up.
This shit.
Protecting your people. Who do you serve? That fucking money is what you serve.
You have a kid?
No.
Yeah, I do. You do? Yeah, 14-year-old kid, bro. You got a kid.
You got a kid? I'm my mama's kid, and I'm out here fighting.
That's why she got a kid, because you're talking to me like I'm your kid. I'm a grown man. I'm getting down a little bit. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. We'll bring it down. I understand that. Look behind you. Look at what it looks like.
Are you going to Washington? I got a truck out here. They need a water truck over there.
Look around. I know what's behind me. Look, no. Water, no.
Alright, you can stop and sit on that over there.
You don't understand that? People need to migrate. Please, actually.
Fucking pigs!
Nobody else, honey. 7 different men and only pushing on a little girl. It's crazy. 16 years old. That's why he left. Where he's at. Where's the guy that pushed on a 16-year-old girl when there's a bunch of men around him? Only push on a 16-year-old girl.
Think about the future. Think about world history.
16-year-old girl, me, bitch.
There are minors out here fighting for their families. Who are you protecting right now? The people who've lost loved ones, or the people who will never risk losing one?
Can I get an interview? One interview. One of us. All right. So today they're going crazy. They fucking shit up. They trying to arrest me. I ain't going. Ah, man. You don't want to interview me.
The death toll has now risen to 10 people killed in a high school shooting in Austria. Those victims include children as young as 14 years